The following is a presentation of the Healthcare Facilities Network. Hello, and welcome to the Healthcare Facilities Network. I'm your host, Peter Martin of Gosselin Martin Associates and the Healthcare Facilities Network. As always, thank you for clicking on this video. Today's, the presentation that I have for you is Career Ladders Episode 2. About 2 months ago now, maybe July, prior to the ASHI Annual Conference, I did a video, and I'll link to it at the end of this one, that showed career ladders of people who are working in healthcare facilities management, working in or retired from healthcare facilities management. The reason I did that episode is just to show or to illustrate that there are various ways to get into this profession. Again, the goal of the Healthcare Facilities Network, and I know the goal of a lot of you who are working in the profession daily, is to help refill the pipeline, is to help attract new people into this profession, whether you attract them from another industry or through succession planning and opportunity with your organization. There are a number of ways to do it. So the Career Ladders presentation, I got some good feedback on it. When I went to the ASHI Annual, people said that they enjoyed it because they liked to see how people get into the field. Again, we've said it often, and you know this, there's not just one way into this industry. And now more than ever, as we have people retire, we need to find people. And so I wanted to do, I got thinking about it, I thought, well, let's do a Career Ladders Episode 2. And so that's what I have for you today. So I'm going to share my screen. Like for this particular grouping, I tried to get folks from really different types of backgrounds. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. So here's our first, and it's laid out very similarly to the last one we did, the facility size. When we look at facilities, in the recruiting arm, or just based on, we usually look at them by square footage, and it's not rocket science, but like 0 to 250,000 square feet, 250,000 to 750,000 square feet, then 750K to 1.5 mil, and then 1.5 million and over. So for each of these, that's how I've grouped them. And you'll see the facility size. So facility size obviously matters, up in the left corner. This person has a heavy biomed path. I think, as we've said before, biomedical people, biomedical professionals can make the transition into healthcare facilities management, and should be prospective candidates. I mean, they might not have the facility experience, and you can see how this person proceeded through the field, electrical engineering, biomedical engineering, started up biomed. The advantage that biomedical folks have is, number one, they know the hospital environment, they know the players, they know, I was talking to a gentleman yesterday, and we were talking about, it takes a while to kind of learn just healthcare. I'm not talking about the actual what you're doing, but the environment, the political part of it, and dealing with clinicians and doctors. So obviously biomedical people have that. So that learning curve is is lessened. As you can see from this person, straight biomed, and then they went to director of engineering and biomedical engineering, long stay in that particular role. They've since transitioned, but this is a heavy biomed path. And one of the, we see resumes from biomed people, you always want to consider them. If they've got the education part of it, if they've got the technical part of it, then they can really, that's a transition they can make. And that's why it's important too, to look at your facility size. You may not want to take somebody who's been a director of biomed at a small community-based hospital and put them into a 1.5 million plus academic medical center. So the facility size always matters. I mean, as we know, it's very difficult to make jumps from, say, a small community access hospital up to an academic medical center. Yeah. So that's our heavy biomed path person. This is Peter Martin. If you or your organization is interested in advertising or partnering with the Healthcare Facilities Network, including sponsoring content, then please email me using the barcode in the lower right of your screen. From the trades level to the vice president level, from planning, design, construction, project management, compliance, safety, and security, the Healthcare Facilities Network reaches FM people where FM people are. Our second person here is a maritime captain path, and this is a great path. Extensive experience out to sea, chief engineer, maritime officer, had a career in there, and then transitioned into healthcare coming out. We talk about students who come out of the maritime academies. We talk about people who are, out to sea, chief engineers on boats. They have a mindset about them that their thinking is such that, if they're on an ocean, they have to be able to survive if there's nowhere else to go. Because what they have on that boat, if they're caught in a storm, that's all they got. And so they need to be able to make do. And so they have that skill set that you also need in healthcare facilities management. So long career in the maritime, transition over to facilities, and you can see this person went up the ladder. They went up the ladder from a director to a larger house, rehab, into a larger hospital, then to an AVP, and then to a VP. So a really traditional path here, but it was enabled through kind of that maritime experience. So maritime folks make great healthcare engineers. Let's look at our third person here. This is a trades path. This person, we've talked about this a lot on other broadcasts we've done on the Healthcare Facilities Network. We've talked about this. What's this? Well, this is the degree, right? I think my position, my stance on that. I don't believe that a degree is a necessity. I think we are removing people who could potentially do this job. This person, to me, is a great example of that. I would put this person's soft skills, I would put this person's ability to connect with and manage staff and manage the political environment up with anybody. And there's no degree here. This person, though, the type of person who would take the broom, even though he's a director at a pretty big hospital. His guys are out there with a broom, he would join them with the broom. And so, as I think of when I deal with hospitals, or I hear people who say, you need the degree or I'm not considering you, this is one of the people who always comes to my mind, because I would put this person up against any degreed individual. And so, I know that he waited, was very patient, waited, and then really got to a big hospital. He was at a smaller hospital for a while, was really looking for that big hospital opportunity, and he got it. But again, without the degree, but he's got the technical background. So, when we talk about the necessity for a degree, well, if they don't have a degree and they've got no hospital and healthcare, well, of course you can't hire them. If they don't have the degree and maybe they've got the trades experience, you're going to look at them. So not to belabor the degree portion of it, but I think it's always situational. I don't think there should be, sweeping edicts that if you don't have a degree, well, we can't hire you. You look at the person, especially these days. I've said it a million times. I mean, the market is such that you kind of need to be, you need to look at people for who they are and what they have. And this person's a perfect example of finally got the opportunity to move in at a larger hospital. The degree part was held against him, but it was overlooked, and he's doing a wonderful job. And again, as I said, I'd put him up against anybody. Moving on. This one, I just put in there because this person was a police officer, a detective, prior to going into healthcare facilities. He had never envisioned a career in healthcare facilities management. I think much like the maritime person we saw 2 slides back, 25-year career as a captain, then he goes into healthcare facilities management. This person was a police officer, retired with the police officer pension, and then found himself in healthcare facilities management, which is pretty interesting. And he's been there a while. So no degree, got the associates, but a lot of experience, a lot of real world experience. And he came in as an assistant, and he enjoyed it, and he was mentored, and was mentored well, and took to it. And so, we even have police officers who do well in healthcare facilities management careers. Here's another no degree person rehab path. So he had certifications, started out in the rehab world and transitioned into, you can see, kind of a MOB environment. So it was a very gradual move into healthcare facilities management, following much of that, traditional path from an EVS rehab. And now he's got oversight for, multiple hospitals in the system. And he's another person who's got a strong soft skill base, the type of unflappable person that you want in these positions. But again, he's risen in a very traditional path, very traditional path into healthcare facilities management. Rehab hospitals, behavioral health hospitals, biomed route. So, some of the areas where we can get people into healthcare facilities management, they've got the background, and then you just need to teach them the healthcare part. That's not a small part. It's actually a large part, but if they've got the foundation and you have this support, then they're certainly a viable candidate for you. Let's see, this BS in anthropology, didn't really consider healthcare facilities management, found themselves being a maintenance worker at in an academic environment. Very this person, very amiable, a sponge, loves to learn, loves people, and just took to healthcare facilities management. It's interesting. We do a lot of stories on the Healthcare Facilities Network, asking people how they found their way into healthcare facilities management. I think of video we did with the folks down at Children's Dallas, and Taylor Vaughn and Clayton Smith. And Taylor Vaughn was working, she wanted to go to law school after college, and she was working in a Office Max, I think it was, making copies, working behind the desk. The folks who are, I use them a lot when I have to get something, something to look good, the people who do the books, et cetera, and, struck up a relationship with a director at Children's Dallas, ended up bringing her in kind of in the admin level, and she's risen through, into compliance and is now a manager. And so these are kind of those, this person is similar in that, never expected healthcare facilities management. But I think that the moral of some of these stories is when people are exposed to it, they like it. That is why through the facilities network, we're trying to expose people to this opportunity. If you don't know it exists, you'll never go to it. If you know it exists, we find that a lot of people get bit by the bug and they enjoy it and they want to be part of it. And I think this is yet another example of a person, kind of a non-traditional career path, but they found their way into healthcare and they're doing well in healthcare. This is the intern path. I really, I liked this one. We've done a number of shows about interns and talked to a number of people. And one of the things that comes out, and this person's path illustrates it, if you are able to connect with college students when they're younger, and in some cases, as I was talking to Joy Curtis from Cambridge Health Alliance with an HR episode we recently did, they're going into high schools to try to get people interested in these careers. But we've heard continuously, if you're able to get the college students, Ryan Gagnon's another example, if you're able to get a college student into an internship their first or second year, then the odds are that they may stay with you. Now, we know that college students coming out, they can be enticed by more money into other industries. Dr. Stephen Call has done a lot of research out at Washington State University that talks about the discrepancy in pay. So we know that college students coming out can make more money elsewhere. That is a fact. That's not my opinion. But if you can get them young, and this person was brought into a hospital system on the young side, interned with the hospital while he was in college, stayed with the hospital, and is now a manager with the hospital. And so this really, and he's very passionate about it. And, I think this illustrates getting young people into the system when they are young betters your chances. We did a couple of episodes recently with Aiden Cornell. He's an intern. He was an intern at Community Memorial Hospital in Ventura, California. And in talking to him, he stressed, and if you watch that, maybe know what I'm about to say. In college, they don't talk about healthcare facilities management. So with the debt that they're racking up in college, healthcare facilities management may not be for them right off the bat. But I want to put this up there because this path really does show the intern route and how it worked out in this particular situation. A lot of different colors on this one. I did a little, I'm not a formatter. I'm not a very good artist. In fact, I'm not an artist. So I did a little reformatting on these, though. I kind of color coded them so that colors all played. And when you were in industries, all the colors that are say. But I was kind of giving myself a pat on the back because I'm not very good visually. But this gentleman, as you can see, number of different colors, which represent a number of different industries that this person worked in coming out of the military. We talked about the maritime, we talked about police officers. Here's another example. Military folks typically have great leadership skills. They've got the soft skill component of it down. They've got the process component of it down. They make a really good transition into healthcare facilities management. This particular person, military into construction management, then into military hospitals. I know that sometimes, on the military hospital side, sometimes folks are a little reticent because they think that so much of kind of the military stuff is process, and it's a little bit different at the military hospitals. You see it a lot with the VA. Folks coming out of the VA, can they make that transition into a little bit more of the zaniness of the acute care world? But the skills for this particular gentleman are top notch from a leadership level, and he tells it like it is. And I know that sometimes in today's world that isn't always valued. He tells it like it is, but he also does have the filter too. I mean, you need both, right? You need to be able to tell it like it is and to do so diplomatically. And I think that's also what you get from folks who are coming out of the military too. They're going to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think at the end of the day, that's what we all should want. So as you can see, military to construction management, consulting, but all of these experiences really roll into a great healthcare facilities management role because it's got all the components that we see. So this was a military path into the world of FM. A little bit earlier, we showed you a police officer path. Well, here's a firefighter path. Firefighter for 16 years, became a fire chief, retired as a fireman, and then found their way into healthcare facilities management at the manager level. With the prior career path I showed you with the military, we know that, technical competencies are very strong. You need the technical competencies, but you also need the soft skill competencies, right? And this person was very strong technically. Kind of though, like a bull on the soft skill part of it. You could call this person with an issue, and if it was 2 a.m. or 2 p.m, he'd get on it. He would solve it. There was no doubt. You could trust him. But the soft skill part of it, the part where you're dealing with your clinical partners and such, that probably needed a little more refinement. And I think part of that was because you're coming out of the fire chief world, the firefighter world, and that is a transition that needs to be made. So this person I often think of. I've shared an article that President Eisenhower wrote in 1965. So military General Eisenhower becomes President Eisenhower, 1952 to 1960. So in 1965, he wrote an article for Reader's Digest. I don't know if everybody knows what Reader's Digest is. I'm not even sure if it's still around. But he talked about what makes great qualities of leaders. And one of his stories, and I use it often, he talks about being number two. He had a person who worked for him, and he wanted to promote him. And this gentleman didn't want to be promoted. And Eisenhower, at first kind of questioned it, but then as he thought about it, he said, the world needs good number twos too. Good number twos, the number two, somebody to support that director. And I think, this person, definitely a strong number two, with mentoring, maybe becomes a strong number one, but it was that soft skill part of it. So, as we consider career paths and as we consider who the candidates are, especially in healthcare facilities management, we know, as I said, the technical portion is really strong, but so isn't that soft skill portion. So, do you need to work on folks with the soft skill, to develop the soft skills, to develop the tact, the acumen? And when you're sitting around a table with nurses and doctors, it's very different than sitting around a table with firemen, or, my world coming out of construction management. When you have those owner, architect, contractor meetings, depending upon the owner, or once the owner's gone, the tenor can really change. And so then it can change into an area where it doesn't always translate into, a discussion with doctors and nurses. So just something to be considerate of. This person was very strong, but I think it was on that soft skill component that maybe needed a little bit more refinement. Because again, they were coming out of a world that was not healthcare. Here is our final. This is another biomed path, but unlike our first biomed, and this is at a big 1.5 million square foot organization, unlike our first biomed, this person got into biomed, but you look, it's a very interesting degree, right? Agriculture, again, wasn't really considering the healthcare path, but found their way into healthcare from biomed, and then was a straight path into healthcare, and then that little curveball there into higher education. We find, and I've said this a lot, and I know it's not rocket science, it's nothing you probably don't know, that academia, and I think more so these days, can be attractive to healthcare facilities management personnel because the pace is a little bit different. I saw that firsthand prior to our consulting, prior to getting into the consulting stuff. We did work for academic institutions and healthcare organizations, and there's definitely a difference. But this person, again, rose up to the highest levels, to the VP level in healthcare facilities management, but again, starting out of that biomed. So I think, as you're looking at folks, excuse me, as you're looking at folks, you want to consider their full path. I'm going to stop the share. Those are the 10 resumes that I had for folks. If you have questions, you want to reach out, please do. As I said, I think you see in here, I hope I illustrated that there's more than one way in, and that you look at each person for what their experiences are. What do they have? What don't they have? What can we solve for? What can't we solve for? But I think these days with smaller candidate pools, it's probably more important than ever to look at each individual person for what they have and what they don't have, and then assess from there. So that was Career Ladders episode 2. We got a lot of resumes, so I'll go through some more. I'll try to pull out some different themes for an episode 3, but that's going to do it for episode 2 of Career Ladders. As I said, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out. Peter Martin from the Healthcare Facilities Network and Gosselin Martin Associates. Have a great day, and thank you as always for clicking on this video.